Welcome back to another episode of Driven by Cause. This episode is brought to you by Arriva, the thought leaders behind the industry's only completely integrated and fully automated all-in-one digital fundraising, donor relationship management database, healthcare hospitality, and auction software in one unified database. I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Jay Fisk. Jay, how are you today?
Doing great. Ready for another great episode of Driven by Cause.
Well, you're absolutely right, Jay. Today it's going to be a great episode because we have an amazing guest. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies what it means to be driven by cause. So that's really awesome. And I'm thrilled to welcome Maryanne Dersch. Maryanne.
Hey. Hi, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Maryanne. But let me tell you a little bit about Maryanne. Maryanne is a nonprofit strategist. She's a keynote speaker, an author who empowers mission-driven organizations to communicate boldly, lead with authenticity, and raise more with ease. God, I love that. As a founder of Courageous Communications, she specializes in helping nonprofits strengthen their influence, connect with their donors, tell more compelling stories without sacrificing integrity or voice. With nearly 3 decades of experience in the nonprofit sector, Maryanne understands that effective communication must begin internally before it resonates externally. Her book, Courageous Communication, How Codependence is Making Your Nonprofit Brand Boring and What to Do About It, guides nonprofits to break free of codependent messaging and build braver, more magnetic brands. Thank you for being here today, Maryanne. This is like really exciting for all of us.
Yay, I'm excited.
Well, we're so happy you would be here with us today. So let's just get started. Can you share with our listeners some information about yourself and how you decided to focus your career on the nonprofit and social impact marketing?
Wow. Okay, so I gotta go way back for this one. I was an advertising major in college. My dad was a brand manager, like in the 60s and 70s, Don Draper style, and my dad was an ad man and for Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis. That's why we live here. And I loved what my dad did and I wanted to do it. And then I realized during this time that I didn't really care if you bought Budweiser or Miller. You know what I mean? That I wanted to care. I really want, and it mattered that I cared. And my friends, it didn't matter that they could do the work without really caring or the cause. I needed a cause, and I realized that at the time, my love for advertising and then my love for like social justice and causes, they did not have to compete. In fact, they could work together. And so after college, I worked with actually a career coach, and that's when I started working in nonprofit, almost from the beginning, because I knew that the ad world wasn't for me. And I knew that I had to care deeply to be effective at what I was doing. And so that is why I chose it. And, this is back in the day. And, now we have schools, so much training, right? Like we have schools and universities. You can major in nonprofit, but before we did it, we were kind of just making all this up. The spray and pray. We didn't have any, you just send out the newsletter and cross your fingers. So it was a different market at the time, but that's just kind of where I found myself, and that's where I was happy, and that's where I did the most good.
Maryanne, we are so glad that you joined us today. And in your book, Courageous Communication, How Codependence is Making Your Nonprofit Brand Boring and What to Do About It. It's a long title, but you discuss codependence can be damaging for organizations. So can you define for our listening audience what codependence is in this context, and how does it show up in day-to-day decision-making and communications?
This is great. You guys are good. Okay, so this is a true story. Let me go back. This is a true story. I was with my therapist, and as you know, when most breakthroughs happen, right? And I'm telling her that a friend of mine had criticized me, and that really stung. And I can't believe she said this, and blah, blah, blah. And my therapist said, well, praise and criticism are the same thing. And I said, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because praise feels really good and criticism makes me cry. And she said, but it's just other people's opinion, right? And a whole person doesn't allow themselves to be overly dependent on praise or derailed by criticism. In that moment, it was the divine download where I realized I myself was overly dependent on praise and terrified of criticism, as were my nonprofit clients, right? Because nonprofits were held to a higher standard. There's the nonprofit, you feel less than, so you have to be more or better or perfect. And in that need for perfection, or like to deflect all criticism, the big C word, that's when we become overly dependent on praise and inauthentic, right? So everything I work with people on, I bring it down to the individual, and then, to the micro one-on-one, and then to the collective. And so how that shows up every day is the idea of like, praise and criticism are the price of doing business. If you're not we're here to change the world. If something's not, if people aren't mad by what you're doing, you're probably not being very effective, right? And not everybody has to like you. That was a lesson I had to learn myself, right? Not everybody has to like you. And what I saw in the nonprofit space was the marketing, the messaging was wanting everyone to like them, and instead of finding the like-minded people and saying, hey, if this is who you are, this is who we are, let's talk about it. And if not, that's okay too. You get to be you and I get to be me, and we can move on. And that was the actual birth of courageous communication, and the idea of like that balance of praise and criticism, of peace and conflict. It's all a balance, and it's just all a part of being an individual and being an organization that is out to put change into the world.
Wow, that's great. I hope everybody resonates with the message. And also in your book, which sort of plays onto what you just said, it encourages nonprofits to develop what you call a unique organizational personality, right?
Right.
And that's really important. Can you share the steps nonprofits should take to begin identifying what their own unique personality and voice is in an organization?
Yeah. And this has changed a lot for me over the years, because I realized that in order to communicate effectively externally, we want to communicate effectively internally. And in order to communicate effectively internally, we all have to be more conscious leaders of ourselves, right? And understand our own value, right? Our own, what I call sovereignty, uniqueness, gifts. And then from that place, then we create an organizational identity, and then we put that into the world. Let me explain a little bit more. I worked for a company for 19 years called 501 Creative. 16 years. I don't know why I added 3. 16 years. It's a very long time. We had clients all over the country. A lot of the work that I put in my book was work that I did. And what I saw was some organizations would take to the work right away. Like they loved the message. They adopted it. They embodied it. And others, they got it, but it didn't really catch on in the same way. It wasn't truly deeply integrated. And I was looking at why, and I realized it wasn't the message. It was the people's ability to stand in authenticity, uniqueness, which requires an amount of transparency and vulnerability, which can be very scary for some people, right? And so working with folks on that, then from that place, creating a message, right? Not from a place of like, oh, if I had a good message, then I'd feel better. I'd feel more confident. It's like, no, let's build your confidence. And then from that place, we're going to create a message. And I'll just give you a quick example of what this looks like in the real world. One of my clients is the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. If you know anything about sisters, they are not nuns, they're sisters. And they are the shit disturbers. Can I swear on this one? Because I just did. Of the Catholic Church. Okay. They stir the pot. They are the rabble rousers. Okay. And so our sisters were ministering to people on the border. They work with, they were doing an LGBT, especially a trans ministry. All of these things that may not go in line with some of the traditional teachings of the church. And what we found is that the sisters were very brave and fearless and bold. But the way that message was being communicated from the development and the marketing team was often subverting some of the work the sisters did, lest they make donors mad, right? You see what I mean? It's like, well, let's not talk about the LGBT stuff, because what if it makes somebody mad? So they're acting out of fear, right? Anytime when you act out of fear, you create more fear. So they're really acting in this very conservative way. We said, wait, hold on. Let's step into our values, and let's, using the sisters as an inspiration, how can we be more bold, fearless and fun? Because that's what we looked at. That was their personality: bold, fearless, and fun. And how can we emulate them and let go of the result? This is all about letting go of the result and just speak our truth and let whatever happens can happen. And it took a bit. It took a bit for the development people to be able to be okay with disappointing somebody and having to help them. And for those people, it's okay for them to be disappointed. Sometimes an institution changes and it's no longer a reflection of your values, and that's okay. But what they did get was so much more energy and new people and life and support for their work than they ever had before, because they said, here's what we truly believe in. And the day they put the rainbow flag for their Facebook page, and they had all these people telling the sisters, you got your faith wrong, you're doing it wrong. That's really interesting to tell a sister they got their faith wrong. And they're like, hey, and it's okay that you feel that way. We thank you for sharing. This is truly who we are. If you want to join us in this mission, that's great. If not, we get it. And that is more than just saying, oh, here's your new messaging, right? It's helping people embody these values and then let everyone kind of reorganize under it, and being respectful of everybody in that situation, because there are people who are going to be disappointed, and that's okay.
So yes, you kind of addressed, our next question a little bit. You're talking about the organizational personality, being bold and that sort of things, but you do often urge organizations to move away from trying to please everyone, and we just discussed that. If you're that bold, you're not going to please everybody. And nonprofits tend to play it safe. They're overly cautious, and they don't like to be too bold in their messaging. So they don't want to alienate, their stakeholders. So what fears most often hold leaders back? And how would you guide them to overcome those barriers and be bold and be a little, and not be as risk averse?
So I don't know if you guys, I'm surprised how much the work that I do is really around helping people navigate fear. You may run into this as well, because like maybe they're afraid to use something new or try something new, or and so I think this is a really important skill just in life in general. Most of the time people are afraid of criticism, and that criticism looks like losing money. I think it starts with a desire to do it different or better. I can't give somebody that desire. I can't make you want something else, but they say, we truly want a better way. Great. I'm really willing to help you get there. And then the idea is that there is a balance, right? Like a praise and criticism, peace and conflict, joy and fear is just part of it. So it's not like we make the fear go away. That's not it. The fear comes along. It just doesn't get to drive the bus, right? The doubt doesn't get to lead, but it's okay, because fear and doubt, they make you humble, they make you hungry, they make you question, they make you listen to people. But I just look at it like this. Yeah, fear comes along. That's great. But first of all, I can't make your fear go away. I can't make your fear go away. That's not the point. The point is it gets to come along for the ride, but it doesn't make the decision. I call it sovereign. You're the sovereign one. I say, right? Our organization, we get to decide, and we get to say who we are and what we're about. And from that place, bringing people in. And actually, once you can move through that a little bit, what they get on the other side is so much more energizing, because they're now finding people that have the same values that they do, that are aligned in the same way. Those are going to be your long-term loyal people, that they are. And then they're like, oh, whoa, wait, hold on. I don't have to please all these people, because most people aren't going to care. And that's what makes it hard and stressful. Like, because they think they're doing something wrong, but they're not. They just think they can change somebody's thinking. And that's not really how it works.
You know, that's really, really good information, and just narrowing it down. How do you help organizations align those internal cultures, the staff, the board, the volunteers, whoever is on that internal, with external messaging? And what are the strategies for overcoming always that internal pushback to be more courageous
Yeah.
in communication?
So the overall, I'm going to give you the big answer and then a little bit of strategy. So when and this isn't my philosophy, this is behavior change philosophy, but when the benefits outweigh the concerns, somebody will move forward. So that means the concerns are always going to be their concept, but when the benefits to the growth or to the change outweigh the concerns. So the first thing is to really attach to the benefits. What do we want? Because how we unite people is a common vision. What do we want that we don't have? What aren't we getting? Right? Because once we understand that, what do we want? We want new donors, younger donors, like new board members, whatever they want. Okay, so we want to identify that. And then so then it is to work together. And I have a process that I've used for years, but I do what I call discovery sessions, and I put board, staff, stakeholders together in these and do exercises with them to find consensus points, common themes within an organization, because what unites us is much, much stronger than what divides us. And so we start with that first of all with the benefits, and then with those values. And then from those values, then we can look at the messaging, because the messaging is going to directly reflect those values. And so it's all rooted in listening. Because I'm going to tell you, my old job, I did this work. I still do this work. I know from the beginning what's up, right? But you're not ready to hear it yet. Remember that old Ogilvy and Mather story when like he wrote down the tagline on the napkin and they're like, here's your $1 million thing. Like, you just came up with that. Like, yeah, he doesn't know it's $1 million idea yet. But it's like that, like they're not ready to hear that, because we want to work through this whole process so they can come along in the process. And when they're part of the process, they're more likely to adapt, and support the process. So we always bring a lot of people in the beginning so they can see their values reflected in the work, and they can see it. And it is really an amazing thing, like to see like all the team in Sisters of St. Joseph, like all the energy, that's all the new people, the new donors, the new sponsors they have, all the new energy that's in that room. They're like, it was worth it. But a lot of times we want change. We want things to be different. We're not really willing, but we want to stay comfortable. And that doesn't work, unfortunately. If I could wave a wand and make it, I would, but I can't.
Maryanne, nonprofits are always stressing over money. They always claim they have limited budgets. Small nonprofits especially have limited budgets. But what are a few simple but powerful communication shifts that a small nonprofit could use to deal with the fact that they have a limited budget?
Well, that's a great question. Let me unpack that just a little bit first. I feel like I'm going to go somewhere for just a sec, guys. Just come with me, because our industry is plagued by this idea of scarcity of money, scarcity of time. When the universe is abundant, right? We believing there's the money is out there, everything we need is out there. We tend to tell the story over and over again. We're small, we're broke, blah, blah, blah. You're going to stay small and broke. Okay. When we shift our story to one of trust and abundance and appreciation, then that can calm us internally to shift. Oh, and that's what I work with people on, really shifting the story that they tell themselves first, right? Because when we stay trapped in the story of there's never enough time, there's never enough money, there'll never be enough time. There's enough time, there's enough money, it's just connecting to it. And I just want to say that if the small nonprofit person that's listening there, if you could take some of those words, create a little mantra for yourself, there's enough time, there's enough money, there's enough everything. Having said that, there is a lot I think nonprofits can do. I run my own shop, okay? I deliver content every single week. But one of the ways that they can really do this is to be so much more efficient with how they deliver content. And that is repurposing. They're doing one thing for the newsletter, one thing for no, I do a content, one story every week, right? One awesome story a week that can become audio, visual, written, right? Posts. So all I have to do is deliver one story a week and I can break that up. And that way I can create a lot more content. What I see them doing is they're going to mail to me once a month or once a quarter with a bunch of articles. And no, break that up. Give me a little drip once a week, right? So it's not making it more, it's taking what you have and delivering it a little more efficiently and stopping with the silo. Like just do one thing and then repurpose. Because I think people think they have to come up with something new every time, and you don't. Like I was on a plane yesterday. You know what I did? I watched Friends reruns. Do you know how many times I've seen Friends? 1,000,000 times. Do you know how much I'll watch it again? Probably 1,000,000 more times. We don't mind hearing stories a second time. It's okay to rerun stuff.
Yeah.
It's okay to have it, right? So most of the time, I think they're just trying too hard to come up with new stuff, and they don't really need to.
Yeah, and I think they probably also make an assumption that the same people are looking at it
Right.
all the time, and it's always churning. It's a different group. It may be that the message is finding a totally new audience, and so it's always, even though it's the same message, it's finding a new audience. Therefore, it's new to them.
Right. And yeah, or even if they're the same person, they say you never cross the same stream twice. Like I'm a different person hearing that again. I might interpret it completely differently. Even though it's the same story, there's a different version of me hearing the story. Yeah. Right. Even when I was watching Friends yesterday, I'm interpreting these episodes a little bit differently because I'm a different person. That was the last time I watched that.
Yes, you watch Friends on the airplane. I watch Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, it's my comfort. Like that's what I do, right?
It's really interesting the things that you're saying about messaging and communication. And we're hearing a lot about AI, right? I mean, so much. Everything is AI today. Everything.
Yeah.
And AI is all over us. And not that we all know what to do with it, but it sounds, in many cases, it sounds cool, and you could look at both ways. But I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts around AI in regards to specifically messaging and communications? Do you see the tools like AI fitting into messaging? And if you do, or if not, I'd love to know. And how can organizations use them without losing their authenticity and their unique voice?
I think that's great because I do use AI. I come up with my own ideas, so I'm just going to use me as a model.
Perfect.
I come up with my own ideas, but I think what AI is very good for is taking an idea or a message and say, hey, here's the message, and then help me break this down into an email and a social post, like the more repetitive work, or help me come up with a schedule. I think a lot of that stuff, that kind of the systematizing, that can be really helpful. I think where it gets a little bit tricky is when you're co-opting your whole personality to it. I just think if it's a person, like if you were a person, you're like, hey, AI, tell me how to act, or like what to say. Like I have the idea, I have the concept, but you could really help me break it up and flesh it out. Especially if you are, like I said, in a smaller, or you're a solo person and you want to really work efficiently, that can be the way to go. Again, I think what we want is, for my dream would be for folks to deliver a little smaller content more frequently. And that can really help you break that up and then understand like how you could, so you don't have to sweat over, creating a LinkedIn post. You know what it's fine. That can help you do that. I do feel like part of it for me is the authenticity, because it's my idea, it's my value system, it's my personality that I'm training the AI to respond to, right? It knows I'm sassy, right? I don't have to tell it that anymore, because it's what you're going to get back is only as good as the prompts you put in. So you have to really give it good direction to get good stuff out. And if you, and that's the point, is to have good direction. And I definitely think it's underutilized for sure, because people are kind of a little bit afraid of it. But the way you could get in is, hey, help me come up with a schedule, or, help me systematize something.
So looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of nonprofit communication, and what new challenges do you think leaders should be prepared for?
Okay. I think the whole, here we go. So I think in the past, we were taught I'm just going to tell my truth, guys. You receive whatever of this you want, you can let go however much you want of it. We're taught a very capitalist, like kind of patriarchal sales. Like, you gotta sell, you gotta convince, you gotta pitch, you gotta close, you gotta call that donor every day till they say yes. That made people uncomfortable. It made fundraising hard and difficult and scary. Yeah. And people are like, wait, maybe there's a better way. Of course there is, because relationship first and money will follow. That is, and we love people for who they are, not who we want them to be or what they can do for us. And I see the whole industry sort of shifting to say, oh, wait, maybe it's about the value of our relationships instead of trying to get money. If you're making friends with somebody because they have money, that's disingenuous at worst, and manipulative. Disingenuous at best and manipulative at worst. Like, but if I'm making friends with somebody because I can see that we have a value system, or we want to make the same change in the world. I think also nonprofits have gotten very siloed because we did believe the scarcity myth. There's only so much money for charity, you better get yours. And it kept us siloed. And I feel like we're sort of breaking out of that and realizing, oh, look what we can do together. And I think that's a big shift. And I love where it's going. And I see that nonprofits, leaders and board members and development people are saying, wait, this is really about the strength of our relationships. One of the phrases I use is, people come for the cause, they stay for the community. And we are building communities of support. And and where you're talking about, Jay, the future, that's how you future-proof yourself. Because if you have a community of support, no matter what is going down, because 5 years ago, we were all freaked out by COVID, but there's always something. Y'all been around a bit. I've been around a bit. We've seen everything. Housing crash, right. All this stuff, wars, right? There's always going to be something. And the way you future-proof yourself is the community, because they will stand up for you when you need it. All you have to do is ask. And that's what we saw in COVID. The organizations who are focused on community building did great, because their community said, what do you need? How can we help? Because in times of crisis, I'll just say this one more thing. In times of crisis, people want to be a solution. They want to be part of the solve the problem. They see things going wrong and said, oh my God, how can I help? What can I do? Instead of what we think is like, oh, life's crazy, I don't want to give you my money. No, it's actually the opposite. Things are crazy. I want to make sure that the values of people that I love and I want to, that I want to support are being supported.
First of all the things that you said today are really amazing. And I'm glad we do record this, because you can always go back and listen to other things. But for the nonprofits that are listening either today on the show, or will take our recording and listen to it another day, what's one piece of advice that you wish every nonprofit would follow after listening to this episode?
Okay, stop trying to get people to care about your cause. It doesn't work. It's making you sad and tired. That is not the purpose of your communication. The purpose of your communication is to find like-minded people and attract them to you. And so I call it fantasy relationships. That name that's been on your email list for 5 years and has never opened anything, they're never opening anything. It's okay. Release what no longer serves you. Let them go. Bless and release to make room for the people who do. And it can feel a little bit like I'm letting people, leaving people behind, and I get that. But what's exhausting you is trying to get somebody to care, or feeling sad or mad that somebody doesn't care. Don't worry about them. Why they care about your cause has nothing to do. And I'm a messaging person. With your messaging, it has everything to do with their life, their lived experience, and their values. They want to see their values reflected in you, not their values changed because of you. It's a very different orientation. So there's one thing you can do is you don't have to make people care anymore. Woo! Yay! That should be a weight off somebody's shoulders just listening to this. All you have to do is be true to your identity, your values, and find the people who share that identity, share those values, that want to see the same change in the world, invite them into community.
Wow. All right. Well, we have learned a lot today.
Yay!
But now we're about to learn something completely different. We've spoken a lot about your work, but I think our listeners would be curious to know what's something about you that might surprise our audience to find out.
Well, okay. So, what might surprise you? There's a couple things that entered my head, and well, there's my puppy is in this room right now with me. But my husband and I have fostered dogs for like 30 years. We always have puppies in the house. Well, we go off and on sometimes. We always have puppies in the house, and we've been doing it forever, and it's just our favorite job, and we love it so much. And people are like, "Is it hard to get them adopted?" And it's not. I meet the best people, and so, we get them adopted. We take a little break, and the next thing. So right now we have two 12-week-old puppies, and they're just a little joy. But then I'm like, "Is it hard to get rid of them?" I'm like, no, because they get about 14 weeks, and you're like, "Ooh, this is a lot of work." It's time to go. But we love the work, and so I am like a rescuer by nature. My kids are adopted out of foster care. They're older. My kids are teenagers and in their 20s, and I've always just been if you don't have a place to stay, come live here kind of person. Like feeling who's left out or left behind, and so we just naturally gravitated to animal welfare, and so we've always just fostered puppies.
Now, see, there's an insight that most of our audience would have no clue had we not asked you that question.
Yeah, unless you go to my Facebook, because there's always pictures of the puppies up. And I'm very good at marketing, so I get them adopted really quick.
Well, Maryanne, we knew you before the show, and we knew you were nice.
Oh,
but I didn't know,
thank
I didn't know
you.
how sweet and kind and thoughtful and outreaching you are to so many others. So I really do appreciate that. We're getting close to finishing our show, but we always like to ask one question. What is something that we didn't ask you that we wish we had?
Um, I don't know if I can think of anything. I think we covered it pretty well. I will say this because I just want to emphasize something I think is really important. Everything is an inside out game. And what we look for are external solutions to make us feel better internally. And I think you guys can relate to this for sure, right? If I had this software, then I'd feel better. I wouldn't have to worry about fundraising. Everything would be perfect. Like there's no magic wand. Because if I had it, I'd give it to you. None of us would be here. But everything is an inside out job. And so instead of saying, oh, if all of these conditions were met, then I'd feel good. Let's work on you feeling good no matter what the circumstance, right? And then claiming that sovereignty. And then from that place, adopting those strategies. Because what I see people is they blame the strategy, right? Oh, that consultant, they didn't, because they want this consultant to like, oh, because if I have this person, I never have to worry about fundraising again. And that is not how it works. When you embrace it, other people embrace it. You set the temperature for everything. And if I work with somebody like, I don't like fundraising, like, well, nobody else around is going to like it either. So when you're excited and comfortable, other people will be too. So everything is an inside out job instead of an outside in. And that's my biggest lesson over the last 7 or 8 years. And really working with people instead of the outside in from the inside out, and the much better product that you get on the other side of that.
That was great. I really appreciate that. But we're still coming back, but we'll be right back after this.
We are a team that has had an enduring influence on the nonprofit industry for more than 3 decades. We pride ourselves on developing and delivering technology with a purpose, software born of a genuine understanding and passion for cause. We are relentlessly dedicated to our client success. We are with our clients for good. We are Arriva, tech with purpose, driven by cause. Arriva is the trusted advisor and market leader of fundraising, donor relationship management, and auction software and services. Exceed further, our evolutionary all-in-one digital fundraising and donor relationship management software is helping nonprofits worldwide further their mission, transform fundraising, and cultivate relationships with donors and constituents. Our Maestro Auction virtual, live, and silent auction software, text-to-bid, virtual and mobile bidding software, and text-to-fund, text-based donation software are helping nonprofits raise billions of dollars through thousands of virtual fundraising events, charity auctions, and galas. Visit Arriva.com and reach out today and see how Arriva can help your nonprofit organization go further.
Welcome back, everyone. All right, we're going to go into our next segment, which I really love, and that is Ask the Maestro. Jay, what question do you have from the audience today?
Dave, we have an interesting question today. It comes from Tony. Tony asks, I'd be interested in hearing Maryanne's thoughts on this. Tony said, our nonprofit has grown, but our messaging still feels stuck in the past. How can we reshape our brand voice to reflect who we are now without confusing or losing our existing supporters? There you go.
That's a great question. My first question back is I want to ask him a little bit more about what's keeping them stuck or bound to this old version of themselves. And okay, this is sort of like a psychic reading here. Just let the intuition roll. So because there's something in there that I feel like is keeping them bound in this old version of themselves. But I think the first thing is you just trust your people to come with you. Organizations evolve naturally, right? We evolve as people, trust them to come with you. They may be wondering why you're so stuck in this identity. But typically, if I see something like that, there's probably somebody internally that's holding on to this identity because they have some sort of ego or some attachment to the identity that's keeping it bound. That'd be my first guess. But then again, what I mentioned before really is appropriate here, which is what do we want, right? We want like what is our goal and how are we alike? What is our vision? Because what we're inviting people into is the future. And if you're stuck in the past, you can't invite people into the future. But that's my short answer.
Well, that's a great answer. And so for those of you that are watching, why don't you go ahead and submit your question to Ask the Maestro, and you just might hear it on the next edition of
That's cool. That's some real-time stuff, guys.
It is real-time stuff. Thanks, Jay. Maryanne, it was a pleasure having you with us today. It was such a treat. Thank you so much for all of your insights.
Thanks, guys.
And your advice to our listeners. I know I enjoyed it. I'm sure they all enjoyed it as well.
Thanks, guys. It was a joy to be able to share all this with you. Thanks for being so receptive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today. Make sure you subscribe to Driven by Cause. And while you're at it, I always say this, leave 5-star ratings. Please don't leave 4, leave 5 stars. I also want to give a thank you to our amazing sponsor, Arriva. Thank you to all of our fantastic listeners. We hope you'll join us next time on Driven by Cause and make it a great day. Thank you.